This presentation is about capitalism. So you're probably expecting a learned dissertation on Adam Smith, The Wealth of Nations, Karl Marx, all sorts of things like that. Who knows? However, what you are going to get is a fusion of poetry as a vehicle for discussing how to get capitalism out of your head. So could you please put your hands together and give a fantastic welcome to Claire Marshall and Nicole Smede.
Ngata ngaramirung baraigu. I listen good to country. Ngata ngaramirung dangegalgu. I listen good to the ancestors. Wanimbu ganila, wanimbu gani. Always was, always will be. Nirumba barai, Aboriginal land. Weebu, gujigu, barabayitir Nicole ngata waramai galban. Darawal Gaba Baragaba. My name is Nicole. I am a Waramai Biripai woman, born and living on Darawal country on the south coast of New South Wales. I'm an artist, a musician, and a poet, and I believe that poetry is everywhere. It's in country, relationships, and deep listening. It's in gesture, in song, dance, and visual art, and in spoken and written word. My ancestors and my brothers and sisters, we know this. We know that country tells powerful stories if we ngara, listen. Poetry is a way of listening to these stories and to each other. A way to tell stories in ways that both human and non-human, our kin, country and ancestors, can understand. It's vibrational story.
And my name is Claire Marshall. I'm an academic, an artist, and an activist. And I'm also a weird woman. So Western, educated, industrialised, rich, democratic, Western, if you like. And that means I grew up with certain stories. I'm now living in Gumbaynggirr country, where the stories are pretty different. Today, we want to tell you a story about how capitalism got into our heads. Okay, here goes. Once upon a time, long, long ago. Actually, Nicole, maybe you should start, because I feel your once upon a time is a bit longer ago than mine.
Marangu, thanks Claire. There is actually no once upon a time, because time is always and forever, circular and cyclical. We have been here for time immemorial, forever time. We, the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people of what we now call Australia. We are Indigenous, as we are the holders of language, knowledge systems and beliefs that have been learned from country and passed down by our ancestors. We possess invaluable knowledge of practices for the sustainable management of natural resources. We have a special relationship with the land. But you are all Indigenous too, as you have all come from a bloodline that has walked this earth for millennia and known country as kin, as we do. Your ancestors cared for country and understood this kinship of human, animal, and nature. That we are all one, all connected, and all come from the mother, earth. We are all made of country, blood, bone, skin, water, and stars. Our brothers and sisters are the animals. Our ancestors, their spirits live in the trees, in the birds, in the wind and the water. And we all return to the mother when we die, and our spirits become one again. A beautiful example of this kinship knowledge is given by a brother of mine, Raymond Timbry, a proud Yuin Gadigal Murrin, a saltwater man. And he tells this story. When we die, we are buried in the mother. From our bones germinates a seed, and from this seed grows a great tree covered in flowers that are pollinated and become berries. A bird flies and lands in this tree. It's come to eat the berries. And when it does, that human that was buried in the mother, that grew into the tree, now becomes part of the bird. So the bird flies across country, singing its song, teaching its babies how to live, how to fly, what to eat, the secrets of the wind. It flies down to the tree again to eat another berry. But this time, the snake is waiting. Now the snake is clever, and it knows that the best and ripest berries fall from the tree to the ground, and that's where the bird's going to go. And when the bird does fly to the ground, the snake grabs the bird, eats it all up. And now that person that was buried in the mother, that became the tree, that became the berry, that became part of the bird, is now a part of the snake. The snake travels country, teaching its babies how to live, what to eat, the secrets of the land. And along comes a human and bang, bops it on the head, roasts it over the fire and eats it for dinner. Now that human that was buried in the mother, that became part of the tree, that was the berry, then part of the bird, that became part of the snake, is now a part of the human once more. We are all connected and reliant on each other. We are no better than any other living thing, and the balance of the planet depends on us knowing this and living this way, in reciprocal generosity and balance.
Now, while this may have been your story, Nicole, for generations and generations, there is another story that began on the other side of this planet about 500 years ago and came to challenge this story of reciprocal generosity and balance. While most people still believed in the aliveness of nature, some people had started a new story, a story about a singular, centralized God, a God that had created everything and had made man in his image. This God didn't see Earth as mother, but as something to subdue, saying to be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish in the sea, the birds in the air, and over every living thing that moves upon the earth. This new story gave man a new role, and the role and the power ignited something. It ignited the idea of better than. Soon the flames of this story spread. Kings and queens declared themselves closer to God, and thus better than the commoners. Lords and ladies declared themselves closer to the kings and queens, and thus better than the peasants. And because they were better than, they had the right to control, to own people. They decided they didn't want to work on the land. They made the peasants share what they harvested, what they foraged from the forests, and what they fished from the seas, all in the forms of tithes and taxes. If they did not get what they wanted, they threatened violence. But then, to keep the perpetrators of this violence fed, they demanded more and more from the peasants. The cycle got worse and worse. Higher demands, greater punishments. But the peasants started to fight back. At first they had little success, but then a great plague swept through the land, a pandemic, if you like. And we all know that with plagues and pandemics, power balances can shift. With a population decimated and labour at a shortage, the peasants saw their moment and realised their power. They started to reject the demands of the lords. They started to say, we want a new system where we work the land with each other and for each other. As feudalism fell apart, there wasn't any anarchy. People knew, they remembered how to work together. A cooperative and egalitarian society rooted in the principles of local regulation started to emerge. Land was declared commons, meaning belonging to all, a single mother shared by everyone. As the peasants discussed and agreed how they should care for their mother and return her to her health after centuries of overgrazing, overfishing, and overproduction, some of that abundance returned. But trouble was brewing in the wings. The story of Better Than had not died down. It had grown in the heads of kings and queens and lords and ladies. It had grown dark and devious, and it vowed to separate people from their mother. And it had a new tool to do that, the idea of ownership.
But you can't own your mother. She owns you. We are all born from her, and we all go back to her when we die. Every living thing is born of her. How can you own your mother? You don't own her. You can be thankful, grateful, respectful. You can love her for bringing you into the world and for providing everything that you need. But you can't own her. You cannot own what is part of you. You cannot own what you love. You cannot own your mother. Mother, I've spent hours now searching for myself in the symmetry of your skin, in the blues and the greens of your depths. I watch the sand dance to your tides and see the tannins, like tea, tessellate upon your earthly limbs. I find my feet in the footholes of our people, long gone now. And I know that this is where I belong. Curly Saunders.
If you feel like you belong to the land, the Better Than story has news for you. That land that you belong to is now owned by someone else, and you will have to vacate. The Better Than story realised that if you wanted to control people, you needed to control the land they lived off. So in a brutal period known as the Enclosure movement, the Lords declared ownership of the land and forcibly removed people from the mother who had given them everything that they needed. Then the Lords introduced a new idea, the idea of commodification. The things that people had always received as gifts from the earth, the fruits and the vegetables, the plants that healed, the wood they burnt for warmth, the fish in the streams, these were no longer gifts. They had a price, and the price had to be paid to the Lords. To get the money they needed to pay for things that were once free, peasants needed to work the land once more. But this time, it was not their land. It was not their mother. It was a thing, and it was their job to extract as much of it as they could. The Better Than story also had another trick, a trick called conformity. See, Mother Nature loves diversity. Diversity is powerful because it increases the amount of relationships between things. The corn supports the beans catch the nitrogen in the air and return it to the ground. The squash covers the soil to keep the water in. Together, these three plants keep each other healthy, but it's harder to harvest them. So instead, they planted a single species, a monoculture. The idea of conformity spread to people too. Do as I do or do as I tell you, yelled the Better Than story, and if you don't, I will find somebody else who will. The tall builder who built houses, for the gardeners who grew the food, for the healer who kept them all healthy, were all reduced to a monoculture themselves, workers. These workers, stripped of their identity, their diversity, their ability to collaborate and share, were easy prey for the next Better Than story. You are in competition.
Competition. In nature, nothing competes. It lives in reciprocity. Trees share their sugars through the mycelial networks with other trees, even those not of their own species. If a tree is sick, the trees surrounding it will pump life force, water and sugar from their roots into the mycelial network of the sick tree to help it survive. They know that they are stronger together. Plants speak to each other. They warn each other of dangers. If a plant is being attacked by a pest, it will give out a distress signal to warn the surrounding plants. so they have time to up their defences. That smell of freshly cut grass, that's a distress signal, a warning of danger. Just as there is no competition in nature, we all used to live that way. There was no competition in our communities. We knew that we were stronger together and that each individual brought something wonderful and unique to the whole through their skills. The strongest fighters were healed by the medicine holders, who weren't the strongest fighters, but had skills with medicines. Others were great teachers, others great hunters, others the keepers of song, the best boomerang makers, the best net weavers. There was no competition because each individual was celebrated for their unique gift and strength, and it contributed to the health of the whole community. We learned to live that way through observing nature. Ngara, listen. Nyana, look, learn. That's how we survived and lived in harmony for millennia. We wouldn't be here today if we didn't live in harmony with nature.
But the growing flame of competition didn't like harmony. It grew brighter with conflict, and it started to change people from the inside, changed how they saw each other, from potential friend to potential foe. It changed how they saw time, from something that just was to something that needed to be used and captured and commoditized. It changed how they saw themselves, from complex beings constantly connected to a community of kith and kin and country, to single individuals, separate and alone.
Get out of here, somebody yells, before the paddy wagon cruise past, a thread of death on rubber tyres. Behind garbage bins we gather, hysterical at this insane game, smashing bottles over our heads. In the restaurant, you tip your glass, savour food that you did not grow, pay with money you do not merit. Once, all people sat and ate together, every person sated in understanding a mutual love, the cultural law. Paddy wagons patrol their threats. Behind the bins, we are starving. We watch kindness become extinct. The Extinction of Kindness by Ali Cobby Eckermann.
While people were becoming more miserable, poor, and dispossessed, the lords were getting bolder, richer, and more assured of themselves. This process of enclosure, of declaring ownership over Mother Earth, had worked so well at home, they decided to take it overseas, but with a new name, colonization. Powered by the riches gathered from extracting as much from Mother Nature as they could make other people do, the lords sent their ships to foreign lands, and in 1788, one of those ships landed on the shores of the country we now stand on. They carried many dangerous things on that ship: guns, cattle and sheep with hooven feet. But perhaps the most dangerous thing was the flames of the better than story. See, the story had spread to many people now, and with it the better thans grew. Thanks to thinking by Rene Descartes, if you were closer to God, you could be better than what was closer to nature. Kings and queens were better than lords and ladies. Lords and ladies were better than peasants. Men were better than women. Adults were better than children. People with white skin were better than people with coloured skin. The people that arrived immediately put the same dynamics from home into play in this country. They declared the land terra nullius, meaning land without master. And in a way, they were right. The land didn't have a master.
Because you cannot be master of your mother. But that does not mean Aboriginal people did not shape this land. Through observation and listening closely to the cycles of each season, plant and animal, we learned how to best care for country so that we could all thrive. Fire sticks burning allowed us to clean up all the dead leaf litter, choking the grasses and medicinal plants, so that they could grow strong and feed and heal. Many of our medicines and bush tucker plants need fire to germinate new growth, and cool smoke, the white smoke, is a medicine for certain plants and a poison to the plants that are not meant to be there. They're not meant to be on that part of country. This was one of our farming methods, learned from thousands and thousands of years of observation and passing down of knowledge. We were not nomadic people, but we did move. Saltwater people spent time on the coast near the water when fish was in abundance, but moved inland during the year when kangaroo and wombat and other food sources were in abundance. This way of living ensured that we didn't take too much of anything, that our food sources and our medicines were given time to grow and have their young, to ensure nothing died out and there was something for everyone. We shared everything. In our languages, there's no word for please or thank you because you didn't need it. Resources were shared. We have words for appreciation though. Marangu, Yokulma, Yaranji. There were no wars. There was no need for walls and fences, these modern boundaries that divide into suburbs, towns, states, didn't exist. We worked in harmony with our neighbours, trading foods and medicines from their country to ours, their tools and their resources. We spoke their languages, many languages, and intermarried. Their family was our family. We understood that the health of the land and the waters was the responsibility of everyone. If the river upstream was sick, then our river downstream was sick too. This was a good life, a generous life, living in reciprocity.
But the better than story didn't agree. The good life was not about reciprocity, it was about earning money. More money to buy more things, to be better than more people. The better than story now controlled many people's minds, and all it wanted was more. More land, more cattle, more money. The land, the cattle though, they were not living things, they were resources. And they wanted these resources in the hands of the few, a concentration of power to fuel their continual growth. Enough was never enough.
Latest discoveries. Fine, open country with wooded plains, reminiscent of an Englishman's estate. The expeditions of Major Mitchell, State Library of New South Wales. We watched them come with new ideas for change, create a green and pleasant land on dusty plains, clear our wildlife for sport or game. They brought red coats, mulled wine, hounds for the English hunt, chasing a fox on the run. They smoothed the outcrops, straightened our snaky trails for the shortest route to town, cleared forests, squared the land into parcels, bound with wire. They drove sheep onto patchy runs, planted seed in a land with no seasons. They gave new names to our rivers and creeks. New laws defied our old beliefs, sent starving families drifting off country. Skirmishes turning the tribe in on itself, knowing that the white man had come to stay. The Bathurst Plain by Brenda Saunders. They took the land in the most horrendous ways, genocide, brutal and calculated massacres of men, women and children to wipe away the evidence that this was not, in fact, terra nullius. They ruined the health of the land by placing hooved animals upon its skin, making the earth dry and hard. Our crops, our medicines couldn't grow in this soil. They planted their own crops, not of this country. They became weeds, pests, choked the health of the plants that had grown here for thousands of years for their better than. They didn't share food and resources, and they killed my ancestors for behaving and living in the reciprocal lifestyle that they had always lived. They didn't understand, and they didn't care to understand. I see the people live at peace. I see the people share their meat. I heard the singing on the land that made the people strong and dance. I heard the stories told again and again. I remember country always the same. I see the boats come towards the camps. I see other people steal the land. I heard the falling. I heard the fighting. I remember crying. I see the people go through the pain. I see the people become strong again. I see the country always the same. Old Tree by Joel Deves.
The Better Than story is now all over the world, wreaking its damage. It has and continues to destroy the lives and lands and lessons that we desperately need to learn, because the Better Than story is also alive within all of us every time we use its tricks: colonization, competition, commodification, conformity, centralisation, all for the point of continual growth. And the more we feed it, the more it wants. But it doesn't have to be this way. We can get capitalism out of our heads. So let us tell you now of a future where we are free from the Better Than story. We now live in a world where the only thing that keeps growing is cancer. We no longer desire to own and control land and everything else. We've started with dictating great swaths of land to be the commons, but soon it just becomes country.
It's all country. Land country, sea country, sky country. It's all country, it's all the mother. Ye barai, spoken in heart, head bowed, spirit silent, waiting for permission, listening to wind, to water, cascade delicately down rust-coloured skin, mother's skin. It pools in her belly, her womb, and is cradled there in offering, like words spilt from lips, spoken from heart. They are cradled in held breath, hidden in stone, in shrunk behind leaf, and exhaled. Gate nirun.
As our relationship with land changed, so did our relationship with each other. We saw that our mother country loved us all equally, so we didn't need competition. When one of our brothers or sisters did something, shone brightly, didn't cast shade on our own brilliance. It gave our brilliance a partner, a new potential. We began to realise that survival of the fittest didn't mean you had to survive on your own. We eschewed the arm wrestle for the handshake.
Maying quiet nest, ngolangang silently gathered by dying Ganbi, leaving Nanga, Gujiga Wulawala, Gami Wulali open, Yiraman chests filled with the breath of Garawanga Wulali. Bunbal in Maramal, Muji Wulali Burara guided, through Manda Wayagadi Najibir, for the unweaned and weary. Waramanaguan, Gulgul. Returning to Ngura Ngata Ngubu Burai. Gugara Jaja, Wuri rising.
As we got used to enjoying each other's brilliance, we also got used to being nurtured by nature's abundance, and we slowed down. Without the need to push, to grind, to be busy, to be better than, we had time to listen and to develop empathy. And through empathy, the complexity of the world revealed itself to us. A tree is not a tree, it's my partner in breathing. A fruit is not a fruit, It's my partner in nourishing life. When I eat it, it nourishes my life, and in turn, I nourish it by spreading its seed. We saw that the world around us was not filled with commodities, but with alive, complex relationships.
From the woodlands to the sclerophyll of the eucalypt forests, I know. Within the air, I can certainly feel a benevolence which resembles that of home. My name is Daniel Murray Hanson. I come from Balladong country, born Whadjuk country. I think as I walk slowly across country. We know our place, we know our land, the King's Land, the final resting place of the Wagul spirit, where the royalty of the Noongar people would hold their corroboree, where cleanliness is next to godliness and everything is kept spotless 24/7, which is why my people have always given the blessing of cleanliness to the Budjar we respect, always leaving our camping spots cleaner than when we entered the area. Everywhere we declared our home. Kulak, Home by Daniel Hanson.
As we came to understand the complexity of life, we began to revel in its diversity. We gave up on being better than, and we realized that perhaps we were evolving. Each act of creativity that stepped outside conformity created a mutation of some kind, as evolution does. And this sparked others not to replicate, but to be inspired by. As the bonds of capitalism loosened, we saw there was a space for every kind of creative brain, creative identity, creative idea. In fact, as the impacts of centuries of capitalism were felt more and more, we realized that these creative approaches were in fact vital for our survival. New ways of adapting to a changing climate emerged, but perhaps more importantly, old ways were finally seen for their wisdom.
Part of our kinship is our totem system. Your responsibility is to look after your totem and ensure its habitat is cared for so it can thrive. With everyone looking after their totem, everything is in balance. No animal suffers or dies out from overculling. No habitat is destroyed from overharming. Kinship is a way to love, nurture, and give thanks. Eating with the seasons is part of this too, making sure that you eat the fruits, berries, and animals when they are in abundance, and not eat them during mating season or flowering season, to ensure that we don't take too much and get greedy. This way, we don't overfarm, overfish, and we ensure that the next harvest is there. We also don't take the first of anything. If there is a ripe fig, I don't take that fig. I walk a bit further and see if there are more. And if there are, I take some of those. This is not taking too much. This is ensuring that there is some for others and that there is an opportunity for pollination, germination, and new life.
As our way of living became more connected to country, we realised that country was very different depending on where you stood. One law, one policy, one idea, one practice was never going to work in different contexts. So we gave up trying, and instead we started to listen to what country wanted.
My feet are covered in dirt from Mother Earth as I stand still on her country. I use my body as a conduit as she begins to fill me with heartfelt message, with utmost love. I open my eyes to the truth inscribed in the earth. My hands uncover the stories, her people, her places. I use my mind like a justice scale and endeavour to weigh up the facts with incriminating evidence, with undeniable proof. I close my heart to the trauma etched upon page. I can't comprehend this hurt. This is what you need to know, Mother Earth will say as I become threadbare. Winds of change she tells me, are already on the way. You'll know when you're ready, she says. Over thick skin, I rub my hands and listen deeply to Mother Country. Conduit, Nick Patton.
But we, country included, started to face the increasing impacts of climate change, driven by our belief in the better than story. We realised the danger of concentrating power in the hands of the few, so we focused on growing capacity in the hands of the many. National capital funded community capacity. As storms struck and oceans rose and bushfires blazed, we realised that like a forest we were stronger together, and we were never really very separate to begin with. And this led to a new story where more was not more, where the more you shared, the more you had. Billionaires were no longer held up as people to aspire to, but people who were too greedy to share with their community. Advertising was not seen as a cultural agent, but as a capitalist mechanism that bred insecurity and fear. Social media and artificial intelligence technologies were taken out of the hands of private owners and run by cooperatives informed by members. Care became the centre of everything. How well you cared for country and kin became the measure of your worth.
Country is kin. I am Palawa, the first ancestor elder, born of Mother Earth, formed by Muini Rumbitina, two star brothers in the sky. I walk down the Milky Way. I am Peppermint Gum, the second ancestor elder, your family, growing strong in the earth of our ancestral homeland, Cape Portland country, beside Old Man Grass Tree and your annual cousins in the scrub. I am the old knowledge, the sacred knowledge, told to your grandmothers and grandfathers since the beginning of time. I have cradled you in my arms since the time of Palawa. I will always be in country, in your hearts. I am you, you are me. I am the ancestors, Ningimpi and Nungampi Ngini, the elders, by Auntie Teresa Sainty.
This may seem like a dream. It may seem impossible. It may seem that it's easier to imagine the end of the world than the end of capitalism. But I beg to differ. Capitalism isn't the same as business or money. We've had both for thousands of years and capitalism for only 500. Capitalism is about motivation. The motivation to grow more, have more, consume more, be better than. We're already living in capitalism's alternate too. Every time we make dinner for our friends, every time we share with strangers, every time we volunteer to make a difference, every time we say, I'm happy with what I have, we can replace the tricks of capitalism with our values. We can replace colonization, the need to own, with commoning, the desire to share, or country. We can replace competition with collaboration, commodification, or by seeing things as they're complex that they are. We can replace conformity with creativity, concentration of power with capacity building, and finally, continual growth with care. Because we care, we do not need to be better than. Because we care, we belong. Nature, Mother, doesn't need to be better than, because nature is exactly what it should be, and we are nature.
I look at the trees, I see myself. I look at the rocks, I see myself. I look at the water, I see myself. I look at the birds, I see myself. I look at country, I see myself. I look at myself, I see my old people. Balajarang, Adrienne Webster.
Thank you.
Malingbu, thank you.